Hello everyone, today I'm taking a look at Super Mario RPG, The Legend of the Seven Stars for the original Super Nintendo Entertainment System. I found this game to be quite enjoyable. I mean, it's a very unique game, and when I compare it even to Paper Mario and Paper Mario Thousand Year Door, I kind of almost prefer this one in some cases, wherein it's a much shorter game, it's more in scope, and it's a little bit more unpredictable. I mean, Paper Mario, I did enjoy the fact it was structured in that you would have, a meetup with the new character, and then you would go through kind of a dungeon, defeat the boss, get the star piece, and move on to the next one. And here that structure is kind of there, and there are star pieces, they are not personified. But in this case, there's always a weird little thing that happens. For example, the second to last star piece, you actually get it, or you're about to get it, and it's immediately snatched away from you, and you have to fight this group of Power Rangers-esque people to kind of take it. And I thought it was going to set up for, okay, they have the last star, they're going to a whole new dungeon. But no, you fight them right then and there after defeating like the giant hyped up dragon of this giant cavern. You then have to fight the Power Rangers out of nowhere, basically. What's also interesting about this game, in the middle of Mario lore, it's very concise in a lot of ways that I just wasn't expecting. And also just the entire premise of this game, being a Nintendo property, but solely developed by Square in 1996 means a few things. One, there's a bunch of cool and interesting designs that are being used in this game that we wouldn't see until later games. And certain mechanics and, how would I say, like pre-rendering techniques that, right after this, a year later, Square would go on to develop their very famous non-Nintendo based classic, Final Fantasy VII. And there are definitely some elements of FF7 in this game which kind of makes sense why it's so beloved, is that it's not just a very simple game, and it's not just a game that really kind of pioneered a new type of RPG gameplay and style that, for some odd reason, no one has replicated until really Expedition 33. I mean, I'm sure there have been other examples, but predominantly, that's the only one I can think of, in which it has the real-time battle mechanic where you can press A at the right time to either deal extra damage on an attack land or deal extra defense on a defense land. Again, this is a very kind of straightforward RPG in that you have a party of 3 members, you buy items, you buy equipment, and you upgrade that equipment. You have dungeons, bosses, mid-bosses, and you have attack and defend items and flower point moves. And so it's measured in flowers in this game for some reason. And so your special moves are things like Super Jump and Super Flare and different levels of that, in which Mario can press A repeatedly to jump on an enemy's head, or he can shoot a bunch of fireballs by mashing Y. And it's very fun and interesting to see how each character develops and progresses throughout the game. 2 things that were really kind of shocking to me were that of your party members, I was very surprised to see that 2 of them are Peach and Bowser, or in this game actually is known as Toadstool. That kind of really threw me for a loop in the whole, not debacle, but the process of kind of normalizing and localizing these games, that even up until 1996, Princess Peach was still being referred to as Princess Toadstool even in this game, which really kind of shocked me because I thought that might have been fixed or over that, but definitely something that they normalized by Mario, I guess, 64, which came out around the same time. Anyway, I digress. And so it's interesting to have those 2 main characters part of your party. I really like Bowser's characterization. Also, recently watching the new Super Mario Galaxy movie, it's interesting how their characters kind of do match up, where Bowser is a very brash, bold, intense character, but is also sentimental in a lot of funny ways and has his own personal side and isn't the brightest light bulb in the drawer, so he tends to rush into things without thinking and then pays the consequences for it later, which I find to be very funny. And yeah, that's the whole premise of his character. And I guess I haven't played too many shoot Mario games or things like Bowser's Fury. As far as I know, even like in games like Odyssey, he's kind of very one-dimensional. But I think Square's 2 or 3-dimensional version of him that they establish here is kind of what people have decided to run with, and at least what they decided to do with the movie version of him. Princess Toadstool is very different from her movie version, that's for sure, just because I'm on that topic. In this one, she's much more demure, and again, the opening cutscene is literally her sitting in a field of flowers. Bowser captures her and yells help, and Mario jumps into action. Like, it's very predictable. Also, the whole game has a very cool cel-shaded, not cel-shaded, but the entire style of the game, beside it being isometric, and that leads to a lot of platforming issues, believe me. It has this cool claymation style to it, which I really enjoy. I just think it looks really cool. And just, again, very unique. There's so many unique things about this game that even Paper Mario, developed by Intelligent Systems, were developing and adapting. But, again, just so much creativity from Square here in this game. Speaking of Square, this game also has 2 exclusive characters, developed by Square. And again, it's interesting, Square, in the opening credits, it says, Square 1996, characters Nintendo. So there's definitely a lot of assets they borrowed, like the Goombas, the Koopas. There's a lot of things that are staples of Mario, but Square added, of course, their own enemy designs, a bit of level layout. I think the world map, by the way, is amazing and really fleshes out the world. I mean, we've had Super Mario World, Super Mario Brothers 3, different kinds of world maps, but here it feels like a real place for the first time, like an actual proper RPG town and map system. And another thing I love about the map, before I move on, is that the fact it actually goes in a giant circle, and by the end of the game you can go all the way around the map, all the way from the boss area or the final boss area to Mario's pad. I think that I love connecting maps like Dark Souls style. It was very nice. But as I was saying, the Square Enix characters, so they did enemies and world and whatever, but its 2 exclusive characters are Mallow and Geno. And as we all know, Geno has a certain reputation for being a obnoxiously requested character for Super Smash Brothers. Geno has been this very odd character that essentially only appeared in one game, which was an RPG spin-off, which was already weird in itself. And, this is not exactly an easy game to get, Mario RPG. It is... At least it doesn't seem to be that super popular, and also the cross section of people who liked Mario and also had the ability to do like a 20 to 30 hour RPG are very, very small. But that overlap, it's a very nuanced, specific thing. And so these characters only basically appeared in this game, but have since been a fan favorite. And because they're Square characters and Square properties, that's why they've never appeared in other games. Now, let me just kind of get this right out of the way. Mallow is not an interesting character. If you're familiar with Lucas from the Earthbound series, that's basically his character in a nutshell. He is referred to as a crybaby. He is a shy, not resolved, but reticent kind of character that is searching for his identity. And his main kind of plot point and overarching thing is that when you first meet him, he believes he's a tadpole because he was raised by frogs, but he obviously is some cloud person. And your intuition on that is correct, as it turns out that he was adopted, and his real parents' lineage and story and whatever happens much later near the end of the game. Geno, on the other hand, is the second character you meet, and he's in this forest area, in the forest maze. And, it's been so many years of hearing about this stupid effing puppet, or people just called him the Square Puppet, because he was never going to be not localized, but brought into the greater fold of the franchise. And I've just heard so much about Geno only in reference to Smash Brothers, but then to actually engage with the source material and actually meet this character, is it just a bunch of autistic raving, or is there some sort of objective validity to this character? And I have to admit that Geno is actually a very compelling, interesting, and yet almost simple character that leaves a lot of mystery to him. And so here's the premise for Gino, and why I actually love this character, and I've grown to love this character and makes sense, is that essentially it sets up where there's this Toad, this boy essentially, and he's playing with his toys, and he has toys of Mario and the cast, and so he decides to invent a toy to go help Mario. And so what happens is this toy actually ends up overnight getting possessed by some star spirit, because at the beginning of the game, I totally forgot this part, but aside from Peach getting kidnapped and Mario saving her, the intro of Mario saving her successfully is interrupted by this giant sword which descends from the sky and pierces Bowser's castle. And I actually forgot this happened in the intro because it just kind of happens very quickly all at once, and you're just kind of off on an adventure. But essentially there's a greater enemy that is at stake, which is a character called Smithy, that, and again, this is not very well communicated until like the very end of the game, where this giant sword opens its mouth and all of these monsters spill out of it, and there's this character called Smithy who's apparently building all of these monsters to, well, to be honest, I just beat the game and I have no idea what his what his motivations were. He's just a villain to take out. His reasoning and motivations are beyond comprehension, I'm sure, according to fan theory. So anyway, that's a setup, and that's also why Peach and Bowser and Mario are actually teaming up for once to take out a big bad. So completely kind of a nuanced, completely new role and take on the Mario series. And so the way Gino fits into this is that he is one of the star spirits from that higher dimension plane that essentially has descended, and of all the bodies he chose to possess, he chose this puppet because he believed in this boy's wish to have a strong person to help Mario. And I love it because it works on such a meta-narrative level that it takes the idea of, so Square is not Nintendo, and so it takes the idea of someone who is a fan of Mario and loves Mario, but wants to make like a fan fiction-esque self-insert, and that's basically what this is, while also not breaking the in-game lore. So it's also just really interesting, the writing for Gino's character. For example, he says his real name is a bunch of musical notation and symbols because he's a star spirit, but he can't actually pronounce it, or it's not humanly possible to pronounce his language or his name. So he says, just call me by the name of my puppet, Gino. So it's like an avatar self-insert thing, and it's not like, oh, I'm going to help Mario and be obnoxious, or I'm going to be better than Mario. It's like, no, he is literally a supporting sidekick character that is objective and cool and just a full-on support character, but he has his own motivations and his selfless reason for being there. And he's such a great character. Like I hate to say it, but the Gino posters are absolutely right. He is a wonderful character, and he makes a lot of sense, and his moveset makes a lot of sense for Smash as well. Like I can't wait to look at it or look at what other people have made about his moveset over the years, because as simple as it is, there's a lot of complexity, and he'd fit in Smash. And apparently there was someone posting a reference or tweet or something from Sakurai or Miyamoto saying that, oh yeah, Gino actually would work well in Smash. And to this day, unfortunately, he's still not in. We have a Mii costume, but nothing yet. But I fully understand. I fully appreciate the campaign to put Gino in Smash because of all the Mario characters. I mean, in a perfect world, if we, they had Wario planned for Melee, he ended up in Brawl. It'd be perfect if we had Waluigi, and we have Daisy now. So we have the full main cast. So if anything beyond that, I mean, I wouldn't want to see Birdo. I'd really actually prefer Gino as the next kind of character besides the main cast of the Mario games, because he does actually make a lot of sense. He also is apparent, very nuanced, and I don't know if his design was somewhat inspired by the Digimon Puppetmon or something. I think that the anime was airing sometime around this time in late 90s. And so the puppet from the second arc of that anime, I just remember he has kind of a similar backstory. I don't remember exactly what, but he also has a similar design as well. And maybe just puppets in general were big at this time. I don't know. But yeah, his gimmick is that he actually is made. Well, he's a puppet made out of wood, and so he has like actually not exactly guns, but he has like projectiles he shoots out of his hands, or he shoots his hands. Like Big Boss in Metal Gear Solid 5 at the enemy. And so he's a ranged character, he's a support character. Sorry, he's not actually a support character, not a healer, but he's more like a DPS thing where he does a lot of damage, but he's a kind of a weaker kind of character. He can do damage boost, for example, and honestly, he is one of the characters I actually use the most in the late game because he basically has a magical AoE attack that almost is guaranteed to one-shot everything on the field as long as you just keep refilling your flower or magic meter or whatever. But yeah, no, he is a fantastic character, and he has decent development in his own chapter, but then you don't really get much from him until the very end of the game. And by the end of the game, I mean, I have to give respect to the way that they ended this character because, the big bad is defeated, the world is saved, and, Star Road has been repaired, and so his mission is over and he has to return. And usually in every single piece of media, games, music, books, whatever, movies, how do you say? The character has like a slow motion, like, everyone has a death scene, but if it's a main character, they get a slow motion death scene. And they can say, "Oh, thank you, Mario. Our adventure meant so much together. It was so nice being with you." And you don't get that. You actually get this moment where Gino is mid-sentence saying, "Oh, I guess we accomplished the mission." And as he's saying that, his body becomes lifeless and his star spirit returns to the ether, essentially. And so it's definitely not meant to be a sad thing at all, but retrospect talking about it, it sounds almost a little bit sad because he just kind of ascends and disappears and you don't really get to say a proper goodbye. And that also reminds me when he first appears, when it first shows the star and the light entering the puppet, it's completely without dialogue. Like, it's just not explained. It's just a weird thing that happens and you don't really question it, and it's the definition of show don't tell. And I love that, where you're like interpreting, like, what could this mean, what could it be, but it's just an unbroken like 2 minute or a minute or so cutscene where you just see this magical thing happen. And I just find it to be, I just thought it was so well done, so tasteful, just really, really, really amazing, I guess. And again, it's that sense of mystery that I think a lot of games and media in general are missing now. Like, things just used to happen without explanation, and it wasn't for story conveniences or contrivances. Technically, it was a little bit to establish the character, but aside from that, it leaves you with questions that you don't really need answered. Anyway, that's all to say that Gino is just a fantastic character. He's a very cool character and very fun and also kid friendly. And again, Square just knocked it out of the park. I guess other things in this game, there are also some very fun villains like Booster. Booster is a very goofy character, and they've always had goofy characters in these series in both Square and Nintendo, but I don't know, I just like him a lot because he's always kind of angry and crazy looking, a little deranged little guy. I don't know, and I think what really benefited from that level in Booster's Tower was the music. And I think I said this previously, but the music in this game, it is so well orchestrated. And in fact, when they redid the remake for this game, the reorchestrations sound fantastic. It sounds like almost symphonic levels. And it's interesting that I think it's very much inspired by the Sound of Music, of all things. Because there's this one like mini game where you have Todovsky, who essentially is a character that is doing this pentatonic scale, and you can jump on these tadpoles to make a song, and if you gather songs from around the world, you can play them and he'll give you rewards and bonus points and whatnot. However, the way you actually collect them is that people sing in do re mi, and there's even a girl that says no T, like like with jam and bread. So at first I was like, oh, they're using the do re mi, kind of inspired. But when she said jam and bread, it's like, oh, that is literally a line from that movie. So it's really interesting to see the vibe and the feel and kind of peel back what they were working with. So not only are there elements of Final Fantasy VII in here, but this game is, I guess, somewhat inspired by The Sound of Music. And if you bring that energy to a Mario game, it's a very interesting inspiration that shows why people have so much love and aspiration for this. I mean, now that you even think about it, it opens up with Peach in a field picking flowers, which is very much like the opening of that movie. But anyway, I don't want to say, I don't like ascribing too much, how do I say, effort or inspiration to a single source or saying it's just based on one thing, but I'm just thinking about it now. And it has that feeling, though. It has that whimsical, open, musical, orchestral feeling. And again, the music is fantastic in this game. Geno's theme alone is so, it's burned into my mind. I can sing it right now and hum it right now. And it's one of those songs you can hum anything to it. I don't know how to describe it, but the music just has a certain cadence and beat. Also, on that point, the main battle theme and the main boss themes in this game, I have seen so many parody videos and stupid early 2000s animation without realizing a lot of the music from those actually comes from this one game. And of course, there's other Mario games, Mario Paint most famously, that theme. But there's just so many different themes in this game that are used in extra art and inspirations. I just find it really really joyful, really emotional, and like not emotional, but like I think, oh my god, it's this freaking song. And like every time I get into a boss fight or a battle, I almost forget, and then I hear it and I'm like, oh my god, I can't believe it's from this thing. So yeah, there's something about the music and that really gives this game a distinct vibe. It also has a distinct look, the claymation style, distinct characters, again, mixing, Square and Nintendo, more child-friendly things. Kind of like almost a Kingdom Hearts vibe when they go off to do a mixture of Square and Disney and Final Fantasy characters to kind of mesh that together in a honestly more messy way than this. But yeah, this is a really fun, weird, nice crossover that I almost wish would happen again. Like, wouldn't it be cool if Square had a take on Star Fox or another property, or they did a spin-off thing for another series? I don't know. There seemed to be a lot more collaboration in this era, and I just really, really enjoy it. I think it's very cool and just a lot of fun. Outside of that, in terms of gameplay, the game itself isn't too difficult. There's a specific item that if you're very frugal with your frog coins, you can purchase it, and it basically doubles your EXP. And once you have that, you easily be level 30 by the end of the game, which seems to be like, I'm not sure if it's the max, but it seems like that's the average, the average level that for end game, 25 to 30. Also, this game is filled with a bunch of different mini games, little mini activities to get these points and frog coins that you use throughout the world. And again, there's elements of Final Fantasy VII in the overworld. The fact that you travel from Little Town with, again, just the right amount of NPCs. You have like 8 at max, and they each have little blurbs of maybe, useless dialogue. Some of them have a side quest. And it feels very much to the structure of Final Fantasy VII, even the soundscape, the style of the towns. It's very quaint and very whimsical. And what I like about 7 is that it contrasts that whimsicality against the oppressive, dirty, totalitarian, industrial, government city of Midgar. And, you have the slums and everything. And then you have the scenic pastures outside the city, and a mostly open world that's just a medium to get to where you have to go, but in full 3D. So yeah, it's interesting. I guess on that point as well, another thing I thought about Geno is about Catesy, or Kate Sith as it's written, but if you say it how it's pronounced, no one will know who you're talking about. The cat character from FF7, similar deal where it's like a guy controlling a body from an unknown location. You have no idea what the guy looks like. I guess another thing is that you have these collectibles, which are these hidden chests, and you eventually get a a detector item to basically find them. And and the mini games are very much like FF7. So I don't know. I really enjoyed this game. Again, I almost enjoyed it more than Paper Mario and almost more than Thousand Year Door. It's just, it's shorter, it's more direct. I remember the exact moment where I was fighting Belome. It was a reoccurring boss, and I really prefer how it looks in this one versus the remake, because here there's some weird glitch going on with its eye placement, so it almost looks like one of those all-seeing angels that's very abstract and bizarre, while in the remake it just looks more like a fat yellow frog. Also, yeah, I just realized I couldn't find the fat Yoshi in this game, and neither could Donkey, so I don't know where that character was. Also, on that point, the Yoshi running minigame, where you have to alternate the running, I could not figure that out for the life of me. I thought, do I tap A and B as fast as I can? Do I tap it to the beat like I thought? No, I couldn't figure out. I could not do it. That's the one side quest. And thank God it was a side quest, not a main quest, that I could not figure out what inputs it wanted me to do. But yeah, no, I triggered core memory of reading Nintendo Power back in the day and I remember reading about Belome and Smithy in this version of Nintendo Power and just being kind of mesmerized, because like, oh, I know Mario. It's like he's the jumping guy, and I was very young, and I knew a little bit about Mario, but it's like, oh, this is RPG Mario. This is weird a little bit, but also intriguing. And just the character designs, again, have this claymation style to them that just makes them look really abstract. And Belome itself is a very weird, abstract looking thing that, again, I just did not carry over, unfortunately, to the remake, probably due to cleaning up all those weird glitches that made it look abstract in the first place. I guess quickly on the remake, since I'm on that topic, I don't really have any strong feelings about it. I think overall it seems to have done a good job with retaining the exact same dialogue, style, art of the original. I did notice that there's one character, Titania, who again is another Square property, who as soon as I saw her, I just knew she's basically this manipulative evil woman character. And so in the boss battle with her, when you hit her boobs jiggle, and in the remake they obviously took that out, but I was like, as soon as I saw that, I'm like, oh, that's not in the remake. And sure enough, it's not, at least from the one little clip I saw. But yeah, overall, the remake, it's I have to laud it for its commitment to the original. Everything just, is getting a touch-up, look HD. They also changed the battle system so that when you land a perfect hit, it also does area damage now. And probably some other, quality. Oh yeah, you can switch, like in the middle of battle. That's really cool. So there's a lot of quality of life things that they've obviously added. But again, nothing that I think really detracts from the overall experience. And in some cases, I actually prefer... like, for example, the reorchestrated music is, I forget that what I was playing on was a 16-bit console, because it feels, the whole game feels very powerful and wide and open. But when you hear the full orchestrated versions of these old songs, it's one of the few times where I just immediately said, yeah, the new versions of these songs with full depth and clarity and audio mixing are just so amazing and so much better. Then again, that's not to say that the originals also have a slight charm to the compression tricks that they had to pull off to put them in the game. Aside from that, even some of the cutscenes are the same, with the same kind of static poses, which I found very impressive that they kind of kept in. I also enjoyed that, for the most part, the dialogue had been unchanged, and it seemed like they just were consistent and good with how the game was meant to be played. I guess they've also added new cutscenes where the camera's no longer isometric and full 3D, which I think is fine. It's a bit more intense and in depth and kind of close up and personal, and I think that's a fine change. It just kind of obviously does not fit in with the original cutscenes, which just always stayed on the isometric camera. But yeah, it seems like a pretty decent remake, and if you play that one or this one, I think you're going to get a very, good quality experience. Again, at the end of the game, and at the end of the day, it's a series of different battles and boss battles, and while it has some interesting moments and characters, it's not the greatest RPG of all time, but it is fundamentally very, very unique. And again, like I said, I can't think of any other game or any other RPG that has kind of utilized the same mechanic by doing extra damage on hit. And I just love, I mean, I love RPGs, but I also love simple RPGs that embrace simplicity, like Skies of Arcadia, where you have very few, numbers to deal with, and it's very direct what your attacks do. And it's not super difficult either, and there's always a clear way to either upgrade or grind. And fortunately, I never had to grind in this game, so it's easy enough, but not a cakewalk. And sure enough, the final boss took me at least 3 times to finally beat him and figure out the sweet spot of basically overhealing and attacking as much as I possibly could. And at the end of the game, you basically save the princess, you save the Star Kingdom, and you restore the world to its previous self, and everything's good. Yeah, overall, it's a very solid game, very fun, and I'm glad I played it. And again, just very unique and a lot of things that, Square was experimenting a lot in this time. So it's interesting to see what they made here and how a lot of things stuck or, should have stuck with other games. But anyway, yeah, that's basically Super Mario RPG and Legend of the Seven Stars. And I'll see you later.